Have you ever watched someone's entire plan fall apart because of a single email? Not an argument, not a lawsuit, not some dramatic shouting match, just one email, because that's exactly what happened the day my parents tried to erase me from their will. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. My name is Clara Mealer. I'm 32 years old. And 2 months ago, I walked into a quiet law office thinking I was about to sit through a routine family meeting. Instead, I watched my entire family freeze when the lawyer read something they never expected anyone else to see. Let me set the scene. We were sitting in a polished conference room in downtown Portland. My father, David Mealer, 64, sat at the head of the table like he always did, confident, controlled, the same way he ran our family logistics company for nearly 3 decades. Next to him was my mother, Sandra Mealer, 61, calm, silent, watching everything. Across from me sat my younger sister, Lily Mealer, 29, relaxed, almost amused. And then there was the lawyer, Robert Klein, 55, a man who had handled my parents' estate planning for years. At first, everything seemed routine, until my dad slowly slid a single sheet of paper across the table toward me. Then he said 5 words that instantly changed the atmosphere in the room. "You're not in the will." No explanation, no apology, just that. My mom nodded quietly beside him. My sister smiled. "Now let me ask you something. What would you do in that moment? Would you argue, demand answers, walk out?" I didn't do any of that. I just looked at the lawyer. Because while everyone else was watching me, he was staring at his laptop screen, reading an email, and the expression on his face suddenly changed. His eyes narrowed. His hand froze on the keyboard. Then slowly, he looked up at my parents and asked a question that made the entire room go silent. "Who sent this email?" Let me ask you something. Have you ever been the person in the family who does everything right and still somehow becomes the problem? Because that was my role growing up. My sister Lily was the sunshine child, the creative one, the charming one everyone adored. Teachers loved her. Friends loved her. My parents especially loved telling people how free-spirited she was. Meanwhile, I was the responsible one. While Lily painted murals and traveled with friends, I studied finance. While she experimented with photography and music, I spent weekends helping my dad at our family business, Mealer Freight Logistics. Our company wasn't glamorous. We moved freight shipments across Oregon and Washington, warehouses, trucking contracts, late-night phone calls about delayed cargo. But it was the family legacy, and I believed in it. By the time I turned 24, I had officially joined the company full-time as a financial analyst. My father liked to remind people the business had been built from the ground up, but what he didn't always mention was how fragile it became in 2019. That year almost destroyed us. Fuel prices spiked. 2 major clients went bankrupt. Suddenly, the company was bleeding money every month. My dad panicked, but I stepped in. I renegotiated contracts, cut unnecessary spending, consolidated routes. Within a year, the company stabilized. Our accountant even told my father, "Clara probably saved this business." But here's the strange part. Publicly, my father never said that. Whenever people praised the company's recovery, he would smile and say something strange. Lily kept the family strong through it. Which confused me, because Lily didn't even work there. At first, I ignored it. Families are weird sometimes, but 6 months before the will reading, something happened that made me realize something was very wrong. One evening, I was reviewing quarterly reports when I noticed several payments leaving our accounts. Large ones, tens of thousands of dollars each. They were labeled as consulting fees, but the company receiving them had a name I'd never seen before. And when I asked my dad about it the next morning, he didn't explain. He just gave me a tight smile and said something that immediately set off alarms in my head. "You worry too much, Clara." A week later, my access to the company's financial systems was suddenly revoked, and Lily, the sister who had never worked a day in logistics, was given executive oversight. Now ask yourself something. If you were suddenly locked out of a company you helped save, wouldn't you start asking questions? I did. But before I could find answers, something landed in my inbox, an email. And at the time, I had no idea that single message was about to expose everything. Here's the strange part about the email. It wasn't meant for me. In fact, if one tiny mistake hadn't happened, I probably never would have seen it at all. It arrived on a Tuesday afternoon while I was working from my apartment. The sender was someone from the company's accounting department, Ethan Park, 41, quiet guy, very detail-oriented, the type of person who triple-checks every spreadsheet before sending it. The subject line read, FW, Estate Planning Adjustment. At first, I assumed it was sent to me by accident. That happens in offices all the time. Someone clicks the wrong name in Outlook, and suddenly a confidential email lands in the wrong inbox. But when I opened it, something immediately felt off, because Ethan hadn't written anything in the message. He had simply forwarded an email chain, and the original sender was someone I knew very well, my mother, Sandra Mealer. Now pause for a second and think about that. My mother rarely used email for anything serious. If she needed to talk about family matters, she called, always. So why was she sending emails about estate planning? Curious, I kept reading. The recipients were listed at the top: David Mailer, my father, Lily Meller, my sister, and Robert Klein, the estate lawyer. My heart started beating faster, because this wasn't casual conversation. This was clearly a private discussion about the will. Then I reached the first sentence. Robert, we think it's best if Clara is removed from the estate plan. I remember staring at the screen, rereading that line 3 or 4 times. Removed from the estate plan? No explanation, just a decision already made. But the next part was even worse. My mother continued writing that I had become too involved in company finances recently. She said they were worried I might start asking questions about certain transfers. Then came the line that made my stomach drop. Once Clara is out of the will, we won't have to explain the missing money. Missing money. Think about that for a moment. My own parents were discussing hidden money, and their solution was to remove me entirely, not talk to me, not explain, erase me. I sat there for almost an hour just staring at that email chain, angry, confused, but mostly curious, because something about the situation didn't add up. And instead of confronting them immediately, I made a decision that would completely change what happened next. I forwarded the entire email back to their lawyer, Robert Klein, with one simple message. You may want to confirm everyone intended this to be in writing. Then I waited. 2 weeks later, my parents called and scheduled the will reading, which brings us back to that conference room, because at that exact moment, Robert Klein was staring at the very email I had sent him, and his reaction told me something had just gone terribly wrong. You could actually hear the air conditioner humming in the room. That's how quiet it got after the lawyer asked his question. Who sent this email? No one answered. My father, David Mailer, leaned back in his chair, his jaw tightening. My mother suddenly looked very interested in the papers on the table. And Lily, the smile that had been sitting on her face since the beginning of the meeting, slowly faded. Robert Klein didn't rush. He simply adjusted his glasses and turned his laptop slightly so my parents could see the screen. I want to be very clear, he said calmly. Before I continue reading the will, I need clarification about this message. My father finally spoke. That email wasn't meant to be shared outside the family. The lawyer didn't even blink. That's not the concern, he replied. He tapped a finger on the laptop. The concern is that this message references undisclosed financial transfers. Now the tension in the room changed instantly. You know those moments where everyone suddenly realizes the conversation has gone somewhere dangerous? This was one of those moments. My mother's face went pale. My father's voice sharpened. Robert, I think we're getting off track here. But the lawyer calmly shook his head. No, David, I'm afraid this is very much on track. Then he looked directly at me for a brief second before continuing. After receiving this email, I reviewed several recent financial filings connected to the company. My sister Lily shifted in her chair. What does that have to do with the will? Robert closed his laptop halfway and folded his hands together. It has everything to do with the will, he said. He explained that the email mentioned something very specific: asset transfers that hadn't been disclosed during estate planning. And if those assets existed somewhere outside the official records, the entire will could become legally invalid. That's when Lily spoke again, her voice smaller this time. Dad, what transfers is he talking about? My father didn't answer. The silence stretched for several seconds. Then the lawyer dropped the sentence that changed everything. Several $1 million from Mealer Freight Logistics were moved into a shell company over the past year. My heart started pounding, because those were the same strange transfers I had noticed months earlier. But the next part shocked even me. Robert Klein slowly opened the laptop again and said something that made everyone in the room lean forward. That shell company is registered under a name. He paused, looked around the table, and said quietly, "Someone's sitting in this room." And the name he was about to say was not the person I expected. The lawyer looked down at his screen one more time. Then he said the name. According to the registration documents, the shell company is owned by Lily Mailer. For a second, nobody moved. My sister blinked, completely stunned. What? She said quietly. Oi, that doesn't make any sense. She looked around the table, confused, almost panicked. I've never opened a company in my life. And the way she said it, I actually believed her. The lawyer continued calmly. The company was registered 8 months ago. The ownership documents list Lily Mealer as the sole director. Lily turned to our father. Dad, what is he talking about? That's when something shifted. For the first time during that entire meeting, my father didn't look confident. His shoulders stiffened. His eyes moved quickly between the lawyer, my sister, and the table. The control he normally had in every room was gone. Robert Klein kept speaking. The registration was completed digitally using David Mealer's authorization credentials. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything before it, because suddenly the picture became very clear. My father hadn't just been moving money, he had created a company in Lily's name, without telling her. And the plan, apparently, was simple. Move money quietly, remove me from the will so I'd stop looking at the finances and keep everything hidden. But the email exposed the plan, and by trying to erase me from the will, they had accidentally forced the lawyer to look deeper. Robert finally closed his laptop. I'm suspending this will review, he said firmly. The estate needs to be reassessed due to possible undisclosed assets. The meeting ended right there. No inheritance decisions, no celebration for Lily. Just a room full of people realizing the entire situation had unraveled. And the strange thing is, I never raised my voice that day. I didn't accuse anyone. I didn't argue. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply let people reveal themselves. So let me ask you something. If you had been sitting in that chair and heard your own family trying to erase you like that, what would you have done? Because in the end, that will reading was supposed to remove Clara Mealer from the family legacy. Instead, it exposed the truth they were trying to hide.